Hey, my name is Jeannine Kayembe-Oro. I'm the Senior Program Manager of Climate Justice at the Center for Cultural Power. My pronouns are she and they. I'm also an artist that goes by Oro 5. I'm currently in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in mine and my partner's artistic studio. And it's a sunny day in Philadelphia. I am so fortunate to be a part of so many different uh, rich communities. Definitely starting with my ethnicity and where my people come from is from the Congo and from the Philippines. Um, so being from an African community, being from an Asian community, but here in America, I am a part of a beautiful Black community. I'm also a queer woman of color. I consider myself masculine of center, and those are really important communities to honor within my identity because of all the work that it took for me to be able to be the person that I am to express myself today. Um, Also within my line of work, I'm in a artistic community, um, in a environmentalist community, a Black farming community, uh, as well as a community of mutual aid and care. Growing up in LA, within my Black and Brown community, had to live through and struggle through the pollution in the early 90s and 2000s in Los Angeles. Before a lot of the different rules and things around car emissions started to be enacted. Um, but something that I realized as a Black and Brown person that faces so many different environmental um, oppressions, catastrophes, issues, uh, is that not only do we experience climate change in our natural world, uh, whether it be no trees in Black and Brown neighborhoods or green spaces, whether it be the amount of trash that we have to deal with every single day because we don't have the correct municipal support around some of these basic needs. But living in urban neighborhoods, um, specifically my experience here in Philadelphia, I have seen how gun violence and how racism are also tied to climate issues. Um, the fact that cities are made of, and even I think there's a group called Solitary Gardens, and they talk about how prisons are made of material that cannot compost, that cannot be composted, that cannot return back to the earth because those institutions are supposed to be there forever. And that's a climate issue. Um, and I feel like that specifically affects mainly Black and Brown people. Um, and then even within those spaces, even as someone who has been incarcerated, I see how climate and incarceration and gender are all tied to each other. So, coming from so many different angles, uh, we experience climate issues on a level that sometimes I wonder how, as Black and Brown people, we make it every day. But I see that because we are people of the earth and of the land, how fighting against these oppressions, how changing policies, being activists in the street, cleaning up your trash, how that is a part of our ancestral knowledge and nature to live in symbiosis with the earth. Um, so I see how we experience it negatively, but then I see how our resilience is a part of our character and different ways that we experience fighting for climate change, and not necessarily a positive way, but in a way that that honors our ancestors. I went to Puerto Rico to work with some farmers after Hurricane Maria. And, you know, the reason why we chose to work with farmers was because, I mean, food would be the first thing that people need after a ecological crisis like a hurricane. And I thought we were onto something, like, oh, wow, this is like a thing. But then when I went to Bali, and then when I spoke with my friends in the Philippines who were experiencing typhoons or, you know, large, like I said, ecological crisis, that was their strategy as well, to rebuild the farms. The first people that were sent, you know, aid and materials were the farms and the farmers. And that just goes to show how all of these things are connected, and it still all comes back to our basic needs as people. But you probably noticed that I didn't like go to London and have that experience. I didn't go to, you know, places where there aren't Black and brown people, you know, Bali, Puerto Rico. These are places where marginalized Black and brown people live and survive every day, and still have to face things like ecological disasters as a part of their life. So there's so many ways that these stories, I feel like, are tied together. And for me, it was just a really interesting moment to step back and to see how much food and farming and land stewardship as an ancestral knowledge is important to the people having a chance at surviving the effects of climate change.